Hello, it's Cool Frog, and we're here for another day of some news with me. We're going to see if we can't get you some information that might be relevant to something that you might be interested in. Um, if you'd like to support me, you see there's links all over the screen. There will be just a link tree down in the description. Um, to start off, this is a teenager who turned in his gun-toting father for taking part in the Capitol riots on January 6th last year has branded his dad as psycho while voicing his fear that he is becoming more and more radicalized while awaiting his trial date in jail. Guy Reffitt, 48, of Wiley, Texas, stormed the United States Capitol building on January 6, 2021, in an attempt to obstruct the process of certifying President Joe Biden's victory. Afterwards, he threatened his own life and kids, telling them that he would shoot them if they turned him into authorities. However, he was later arrested after his son, Jackson, 19, contacted the FBI. Now his son has spoken out about the decision to turn over his father in an interview with Vice News, admitting that the indictment was completely torn apart in his family and forced him to cut off all contact with his relatives. As you can see, there's some photos here. It says a teen has turned into a gun-toting father for taking part in the Capitol riots last year, has been his dad is psycho and being radicalized. I mean, when you sit in jail for so long, and the only thing you have to do is to actually think about what you did and how you did it, and why you were doing what you were doing. You really don't have much of a choice but to actually, kind of go a little bit of, um, you know, it's psychotic. It really does radicalize you when you actually go in jail for almost anything. It doesn't matter what you're sitting in there for. Next photo says Guy Reffitt, 48, of Wiley, Texas, stormed the United States Capitol building on January 6, 2021, in an attempt to obstruct the process of certifying President Joe Biden's victory. Afterwards, he threatened his own wife and kids, telling them that he would shoot them if they turned in. And you can see it's a very, very interesting family. I mean, a young man, really, may not like his father, may have wanted to actually be, different from what his father was, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with actually, becoming your own person. This is after attending former President Donald Trump's Stop the Steal rally in front of the White House last January. Guy marched at the Capitol building alongside other pro-Trump supporters armed with a pistol. Vice News reported that he allegedly charged at police officers with such force that he had to fire projectiles and use pepper spray to hold him back. According to the court documents, he told his family afterwards, "If you turn me in, you're a traitor, and you know what happens to traitors. Traitors get shot." However, Jackson had already spoken to the FBI. Guy was arrested 10 days later on January 16th and was charged with attacking the Capitol police officer, bringing a weapon into the Capitol grounds, and obstructing the process to certify the presidential victory, as well as threatening his own children. After turning his dad in, Jackson is forced to leave his family home and is no longer in speaking terms with the mom, Nicole, and his two sisters, Peyton and Sarah. Jackson doesn't regret what he did. However, after Guy wrote a letter in the jail in May, he became worried that his dad was becoming even more radicalized behind bars. In the letter, which is published by ProPublica, he said that he had bonded with fellow rioters while in jail and made it clear that it still stood by the events that transpired on January 6th. You can see that the sun's sitting here. They kind of, everything that was already read, shows up in these headlines for these pictures. It's pretty disgusting to read that Jackson told the outlet, referring to the letter. I mean, like, it's a psycho stuff. I mean, what do you want him to do? He's sitting in jail. He doesn't have anything else to do but actually think about what he did and what, is about to transpire, if he bring, if what they bring him up on. Honestly, it made me feel worse about the decision, only because I feel like I pushed push him into a more extreme direction. I made him more enthusiastic about what he's done. According to Jackson, he made the decision to leave home after the interaction because he knew at some point he would be either kicked out or pushed out in some sort of way. He originally stayed with his girlfriend but began getting threats and went into hiding at a hotel. He was eventually able to get his own apartment. After speaking out about his situation through various news outlets like CNN and raising money through the GoFundMe account, he raised more than $150,000 in total and used some of it to cover rent and the rest of the fund his education. He is now studying political science in local community college. As for the rest of the family, Guy's wife, Nicole, said she fully supports her husband's decision to storm the Capitol and believes that he is now a political prisoner. She also said that she loves her son and doesn't blame him for what he did, telling Vice News, "We're all a little bit broken right now." This here, where it says that she supports her husband's decision to storm the Capitol, I doubt she actually used those words. She probably feels that he's just in what he had done, that he didn't actually do what they're actually saying that he actually did. Sarah and Peyton, on the other hand, don't agree with their dad's actions in January, but they don't think that he deserves to be in jail any longer. So, I mean, the girls are kind of, going along with what mom thinks. Oh, that's nice. Political prisoner with the tag number on it for freeing Guy Reffitt. We can't really watch some of that. This is Peyton, who had to change schools due to the immense amount of hate her family had received, said the whole ordeal made her feel like she had been stabbed over and over again. "I feel like I've been bleeding out on the floor the whole year. Every day I just feel like I got stabbed over and over again. It becomes like a chronic pain because now when I close my eyes, I think our family dynamic is so differently that it was, and our struggles have just become so strong." Sarah added, "We had a lot of death threats over in the mail, and getting threats through the mail is different. You react differently if someone's actually writing it. Someone even colored a photo of an American flag and drew it all over and then wrote, 'My dad needs to hang until he's dead, dead, dead.'" So I mean, people are threatening this person or this family or whatever because of what he had done, and you can see that. I mean, it's ridiculous what they're actually pointing out and saying that people actually did, and they're trying to say that it's relevant to be similar to the beginning of a world war, or even kind of saying that it's the same as 9/11 attack, which is there's nothing alike. There's nothing that's similar between the two or the three, or whatever. She said her brother hasn't tried to protect them in any way, even emotionally. However, Jackson insisted that he offered them plenty of help, which is rejected by his mom. Sarah also claimed they asked Jackson to support financially, but he refused. She explained, "He basically just said it's a GoFundMe, not a GoFund Us, and that it has to be used for him and the things that he said he was going to use it for." Nicole, Sarah, and Peyton set up their own fundraiser on the website Give Send Go, where they raised just under $55,000. Guy is set to become the first Capitol rioter to stand trial, which will tentatively begin in February 28th. Jackson is going to be called to the stand to testify, and he's not looking forward to it. It will suck. He's probably going to be more in a courtroom, which is going to suck so much, he admitted. And just looking at him is going to suck. I mean, I still feel guilty, but this is the best case scenario. He hopes that after the trial, however, he and his family can reconnect and heal. He concluded, "If we keep our distance right now, and then whenever the trial wraps up, then we can kind of get back together. It's just, it'll just be building bridges from here. It'll take some time. My family's kind of a, um, yeah, we won't say the word in a way, and we're pretty resilient. So I mean, this kid is, he's scared because he turned his father in, like his father's going to be able to do something. His father's sitting in prison right now. He's been sitting in prison for, almost a year. For him to be scared that, the father's going to still be able to do something to him is kind of, beyond the point. I pulled up where this, the ProPublica, where the handwritten letter was actually put out, and it says the 1/6ers. Perhaps the most tragic event of January 6th was the focal point was lost. Many things transpired that day. This country may never truly understand. A massive amount of people, known only to each other, came together in the resting place of the founding documents, a place created for a challenge, the kind of challenge only the heart of the American spirit could know. Do we forget? God bless America, from the mountains to the prairies to the oceans white with foam. These battle cries meant we would and we should never shed tears because of enemies of tyranny. So I mean, the guy feels deeply about, his thoughts and feelings about, things that were already occurring in this nation or whatever. To consider this and, charge every single person that was, standing outside the Capitol, inside the Capitol, even the ones that stayed within the ropes, and didn't do anything other than just kind of walk through. I know DC has a gun rule or whatever where, technically even just carrying a gun or whatever, you're not allowed. So there's reasons why they're actually, bringing them up on the gun charters. In the letter sent from behind bars, a key defendant in the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol said that he and fellow inmates have bonded in jail and boasted that their attack in the building could have overthrown the government if they had wanted. Nobody was going to actually do that. If they were going to do that, they would have done it. The letter is signed the 1/6ers. I really don't know what this group is. I haven't really looked into the group to see what they're all about. As far as I know, the little bit of research that I did do on it, it looks like they actually disbanded the group. It's no longer a thing. It was a group for quite some time, and expresses no remorse for the result on the Capitol, in which 5 people died, which no names appeared on it. ProPublica was able to determine through the interviews with his family in the review that his correspondence from jail and is penned by Guy Reffitt, a member of the Three Percenters, right-wing militant group accused of participating in the riot. The Three Percenters is I believe is the group. This must be more of a what they're calling everybody that had something to do with being at the Capitol that day is the 1/6ers. The Three Percenters is the group that I was talking about that actually that had disbanded or whatever, that he was actually a part of group of. The letter said that the inmates arrested for the role in the attack regularly recite the Pledge of Allegiance inside the DC jail and sing the national anthem all in unison, loud and proud, most every day. I have an American flag sitting right next to me, and yes, I say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning. It is just something that you do to show your love for your country. I grew up in the day and age of we actually did this on a daily basis in school. all the way through, middle school or whatever, elementary school. It was something that we were taught how to do, and face the flag, hand over your heart, and you said the Pledge of Allegiance. January 6th is nothing short of a satirical way of overthrowing a government. If said the letter written hand in yellow line paper, if overthrow was the quest, it would have no doubt been overthrown. And that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. Is that that wasn't what they were there for. They were allowed to come in. They were directed to come in. They weren't just walking through because they're like, oh yeah, let's go in. There was some other elements that pertain to that actually happening. The letter sent in ProPublica is believed to be one of the first public statements from the rioter currently in detention. ProPublica has obtained text messages with Reffitt's family and was able to ask a few questions of him via text from the DC jail, with his wife, Nicole, acting as a relay. Guy Reffitt declined to participate in a fuller interview with the advice of his lawyer. Yeah, until everything's done and said, he can't really be saying much of anything because he might just indict himself on something that he's not actually being brought into jail for or brought up on charges for. So he really can't do that. Reffitt faces a variety of charges, including obstructing the official proceeding, which carries a maximum sentence of 20 years. He is awaiting trial and has pled not guilty. His next messages he had sent last month to his wife, Reffitt said he was resigning from the Texas 3%ers. So, he was part of a group of whatever they want to call them, right-wing militants. And there's a lot of people that are part of different styles of groups and forms of whateverness. You can look back at the whole year of 2020 and what BLM and Antifa had actually done, burning down cities. Me personally, I'm from Minnesota or whatever, and living in the cities, I had to move out of the cities or whatever to feel even remotely safe. The cities have really diminished to the point of you don't feel safe living in a big city. Big cities are not a place for anybody to actually think that it's okay for them just to hang around with, and do regular everyday things. You don't even get to walk down the street. You walk down the street, you still feel that you have to watch, every little corner of your own, being or whatever, to see if you be sure that you're not actually being watched by somebody or followed, or like they're gonna. You don't put anything in your pockets. You don't carry anything with you, and because they're just gonna take it from you. These people are crazy, and they think that this is was charge all these people that had something to do with January 6th, but they ain't gonna charge anybody that had anything to do with it. Everything that happened through 2020. It sounds a little bit hypocritical to me, but so then it continues. This is last week. Reffitt told ProPublica via his wife that more than 30 people arrested in connection with the January 6th attack had discussed the letter while in custody. He said that the 1/6ers are not organized and that there are no leaders, just people chatting about things because they are stuck here together. Reffitt said that the suspects communicate with one another with what are known as kites, jailhouse slang for messages passed from cell to cell. They're also able to socialize during the 2 hours a day they're let out of their cells. 2 hours a day is all they get to actually socialize with each other. And they're wondering in the last article why he's feeling that he's being radicalized. You just think about it. You only get 2 hours a day to actually socialize with somebody, and then the people that you're able to socialize with are actually other people that actually joined in with whatever this actually was.
a march outside that had no inclination that they were going to go inside. Nobody actually thought, oh yeah, that's what they're going to do. They're going to actually do this or whatever. It wasn't something that was actually thought of. That was, we can kind of speculate on, who else was there that actually, created the turmoil. Those detained in connection with the Capitol siege have been treated by DC officials as maximum security prisoners and kept in restrictive housing. According to media reports, three defendants that Nicole Reffitt said she understood to be parties of the letter denied any knowledge of it when contacted by ProPublica. One of them said that he became friends with Guy inside the jail, but had been moved to another unit by the time the letter was penned. Nicole said that she helped her husband write the letter and solicit support through the phone calls and jailhouse messaging apps inmates are allowed to use periodically to communicate with the outside world. The DC jail has held dozens of defendants in connection with the riot on charges ranging from obstructing an official proceeding to assaulting a police officer with a dangerous weapon. I mean, yeah, everybody did, random different things or whatever. So, I mean, there's a whole list of everybody that's actually been brought up on charges. And this one seems to be catching headlines right now because, his trial's ready to come around the corner. The letter counters the notion that there was a plan or a conspiracy to take down Congress on January 6th, blaming much of the violence on the isolated, overly emotional individuals. It suggests that the actions were meant to be put in the country on notice. The people clearly are not happy. No, most of us are not happy with what's going on right now. Most of us don't believe in that this was actually in whatever an actual insurrection. It is what it is, and that's what they want to call it. And they're just going to keep on, pushing that narrative of that's what it is. Ask the Capitol Police the opinion of how it could have been. The letter says they're grateful it wasn't a real insurrection, complete with mind, body, and soul. And that's totally true. If they would have actually thought that's what they were doing, they would have done that. But that nobody thought that's what they were doing. Everybody was directed to come in and thought that they were just, taking a tour of the Capitol building. So many of them stayed within the ropes, within the velvet ropes in the statue room. It was just amazing how many people, had respect for everything that was going on in there, but are still being charged with, joining in this violent insurrection. The only person that was actually killed that day was killed by a police officer. Rest in peace, Ashley Babbitt. Reffitt had a moment of notoriety in the late January when he became public that his son had contacted the FBI and reported him roughly 2 weeks before the riot. In text messages reviewed by ProPublica, Reffitt asked his wife for a list of presidents so that the group could use it to create cell names. Reffitt now resides in a cell that is dubbed the Garfield Suite, named after the 20th U.S. President James Garfield. That's awesome. ProPublica reporters visited Reffitt's family in Wiley, Texas, a Dallas suburb, and interviewed Nicole and their two daughters. The reporter also met with the Reffitt's son, Jackson, who has reported concerns about his father's activities to the FBI. Jackson said that the Bureau did not follow up until the Capitol was under siege. The FBI did not immediately respond to the questions from ProPublica. Of course they didn't. Like the FBI is, oh my lord, I guess my clicker's a little off or whatever. The FBI is never gonna go and talk to anybody, straight out and say this is what we think or what we, whatever. They're under such a, lock and key or whatever. That's never gonna happen. The family shared a group text message chats for the past year and some of their correspondence with Guy during his more than 3 months in jail. The material sheds light on the radicalization of Reffitt, whose federal prosecutors characterized in court filing as a serious danger not only to his family and Congress but to the entire system of justice. It depends on what you actually think justice actually is. Um, there's forcing things to actually occur is not justice. Justice is there's been so much injustice in what people think is justice in the last year, whatever, no, it's just a no. It doesn't happen that way. Reffitt, 48, worked most of his adult life on oil rigs, the occupation that took him and sometimes his family around the world, including 3 years in Malaysia. But when that thing hit in 2020, work dried up and he intensified his political activity, focusing on, Black Lives Matter movement, which he viewed as destructive, very, very destructive. I mean, there's a difference between an organization and the group that's running around burning down buildings, destroying things, and thinking that it's okay to actually do so. And so many of them were actually released from jails and prison, or from jails for being held whatever for burning down buildings and destroying complete and total cities. Reffitt saw his action on January 6th as a critical step in protecting his wife and kids from what he viewed as decades-long American slide toward tyranny. We watched the people of other countries rise up against authoritarianism, and think they said they must be to want freedom and liberty too much. Here, the more you try to divide, bend, or even break America, the more the Republic of the people will stand indivisible and resolute. Reffitt's son covertly recorded conversations with his father that have shown up in court filings as evidence that Reffitt came to the Capitol armed and with violent intentions. You find out that I had every constitutional right to carry a weapon and take over the Congress, as we tried to do. So, I mean, he's actually, the quotes that are in there are actually kind of damning, but, at the same time, he said in one recording, according to the transcript in the court filings, so that was a recording, so who knows what, was actually, if that was actually in there. I mean, ProPublica is actually, putting it in quotes. Jackson Reffitt also since moved out of the family home and is raising money to support himself and his schooling. In another excerpt in court files, I did bring a weapon in property that we own, federal grounds or not, the law is written, but it doesn't mean it's right law. The people that were around me were all carrying too. So, I mean, constitutional rights to actually bear arms are being destroyed and demolished. Nobody really cares about, your second right of, it's like people are just running over the top of it and not even caring about your Second Amendment rights. They're just like, Second Amendment, it means nothing. It's really very disturbing when you think about it. Reffitt's wife and daughter said that his statements were more benign than they sound, and Reffitt is notorious for his hyperbole and left the Capitol when he learned riots had made it inside. Nicole Reffitt said that she has long referred to her husband teasingly as Queenie because of his flair for the dramatic. Prosecutors have not accused him of entering the Capitol building or hurting anyone, because that's not what they were there for. They weren't there to actually hurt somebody. They weren't there to actually, do what is being told that they were there to do. Majority of them were not there for that. Um, Obviously, some of them may have actually been there for other particular reasons, to join the crowd of hope, and we can only speculate. In their most recent filing, prosecutors added new evidence into the case against Guy. They obtained a record on January 10th Zoom meeting involving him and two other 3%ers. Reffitt allegedly said that he helped lead the charge to the Capitol with a 40 caliber pistol on his side, at one point telling the U.S. Capitol police officers who was firing non-lethal rounds at him, "Sorry, darling, you better get a bigger gun." So I mean, Reffitt went on to describe how the group might be able to disable a social media company's servers by using a sniper rifle to disable the generators at the nearby Texas facility. According to court records, he said that attacking the servers would make them feel it. Back in D.C., he added, "Then they won't know we're coming next time." So, I mean, it sounds pretty damning coming from ProPublica, but at the same time, we're gonna wait for actual court hearing or whatever, and hopefully, I mean, it's a federal court hearing, so there ain't gonna be any cameras or anything like that, which is too bad. There should be cameras in every courtroom across the United States, period, so that people can actually tune in and actually see what's actually going on. We've seen what putting cameras in courtrooms actually does, and it should just be something that should be implemented. In court filings, his lawyer said that the prosecutors have relied on bragging, and that none of the government's videos and photographs from the Capitol show Reffitt to be armed. Reffitt has not been charged with the gun crime. So, I mean, it is what it is. You can say words, but if you don't have the tools to back them up, then you can't really be charged with something if you didn't actually have it. The letter expressed hope that the events of January 6th wouldn't need to be repeated. "I hope that this was the only day in American history we would without doubt feel the need to notify our government. They have transgressed much too far." And they have. The government's gone way too far and done way too much against the people. Pretty much, my thoughts on that is, when the government fails the people need to replace the government. I tend to look at this letter as a person puffing himself up. It says Jason Bliznick, a senior counterterrorism official at the Department of State. Peter Simi, an associate professor at the Chapman University of Southern California, found the language in the letter more alarming, especially in how it characterizes the January 6th riot as inevitable. I mean, again, it is what it is. It didn't start off that way, and there's video out there of them allowing people in. So I would interpret it as a threat. You can say it's thinly veiled, but I don't think it's that thinly veiled. Simi said this is a preamble. What you saw on the 6th, more is coming. If you thought the 6th was bad, just wait and see. So I mean, there's possible other things that could occur in the future here that we may or may not be ready for. There's no one's anywhere in anything. Everything is, day to day can change. As Reffitt struggled to find work in the spring of 2020, he spent hours watching Fox News and getting angry over the BLM protests. Anybody that was paying attention to any news source was getting angry over those protests, because those protests were not just simple little peaceful protests. They were burning, looting, and killing people. his family said his teenage children supported the movement. I mean, there's a difference between the movement and um, creating destruction as you go through, and move around. I mean, the destruction that was behind all of it was unnecessary, and people should be brought up on charges for the most part of those. One argument with his son ended up that Reffitt throwing a coffee mug across the room. About a week later, Jackson went to march in a BLM rally in Wiley. His father went armed, standing guard outside the suburbs' Old City Park. I mean, you got plenty of people that are out there that were actually armed on that side as well. Around that time, Guy was introduced to the Three Percenters, a decentralized anti-government movement. The group, which takes its name from the myth that only 3% of the population fought the British in the American Revolution. That's not really a myth. The American Revolution was only fought by a small group of people. Wasn't the whole population that was actually part of that. For people that actually think that everybody fought in the American Revolution really doesn't understand history and hasn't picked up a history book and actually done any reading on that. Nicole called meet and greet in June with about 20 members coming to the Reffitt home for a barbecue. I mean, yeah, absolutely. It's like you become part of a group. The whole group moves around. They're not just going to stay at one place. So I'm assuming that they all went to another barbecue at another house as well, on another day. After some awkward small talk and conversation turned to what everyone could do. Who had military experience? Who had a license to carry? Who knew how to stop a bleed? Some took note to be sent up to the chain of command. Guy was enthralled. Afterwards, he began doing what he called intel, doing background checks on his recruits. His wife was relieved. He seemed to have a sense of purpose. Yeah, absolutely. When you're actually gone from, doing a job that he was doing, on the oil rigs and moving around as much as he was, to being stuck at home and not being able to do anything, being involved in something kind of gives you a little bit of a sense of purpose. I mean, my own personal experiences, I got stuck, not having a job after the coup occurred, and I'm really didn't know what to do with my life. I really was concerned that I needed to find something to actually feel like I was part of something. And I didn't put myself out to the outside world to do that. I kept myself inside where I felt, comfortable and safe with myself. But I ended up, get on the computers and trying to find things to do there, which is the reason that that I'm here today or whatever, is because I'm like, well, I can actually try helping the world by getting information out there that it doesn't have to be one way or the other. There's plenty of ways to actually give yourself some self-help and create things to get your information out there, and people see what you do, and people have the tendency to try supporting you depending on your thoughts and beliefs. So there's plenty of people out there that are part of different sides. And so it continues on, and it says, Nicole said that she was alarmed when she found multiple license plates in the bed of her husband's pickup truck. She said her husband told her he used them to make sure he wasn't being tracked. I was like, WTF, what are you doing? She said, he told me to go to work and keep my business to myself, which is, totally fine. It says, hey, just go to work. You're fine. I got this. But, obviously, he was doing what he could. After then President Trump lost his bid for re-election, Guy began to sequester himself in the front room of the suburban brick home, glued to Newsmax, as it reported theories of how the vote was rigged. I mean, you can think what you want to think when it comes to certain you know um, aspects of the media. Um, Even the mainstream media has their theories on what happened and what they're kind of pushing, to the masses or whatever is really really disturbing in itself. If you're actually watching the TV, you should turn it off. Stop paying attention to them. Stop giving them the money that they actually need to continue doing what they're doing. They're not, telling you the truth completely. They're making up their own stories to make it sound like it's that they're oh so mighty and that they can do what they need, do what they want. But anybody else that has any theories on anything or whatever is just wrong. On December 19th, Reffitt found his own obsession. His family said when Trump tweeted, "Big protest in DC on January 6th, be there, will be wild." I mean, when you think about it, I mean, the Trump tweeted out everything to be scared of a guy that's just sending out tweet messages and letting people know what's going on. It doesn't make him a bad person. What makes you a bad person is when you actually lead a country as a dictator, writing out massive amounts of executive orders. Executive orders are not laws. They're just that, just executive orders. So, you call who you want a dictator, but, we know who the real dictator really is. From then on, Reffitt's texts bounced back between plans for shopping and cooking prime rib for Christmas and talk of going to DC to shock the world. It's the government that is going to be destroyed in this fight. Texts told his family in December 21. Congress has made fatal mistakes this time. Feeling paranoid about his father, Jackson sent a tip via the FBI website. He said he wrote his father was a militia member who made threatening statements about public officials and kept talking about doing something big. I mean, that alone is, I guess, I mean, what else are you going to do when you're actually trying to, turn your own father in for doing what he feels right and necessary to protect his family? So this is going to continue on for a little bit here. So it says, after Christmas, Guy firmed up plans to travel to Washington on January 6th rally. His family said that he planned to bring weapons, which was unsurprising. They said that he went most everywhere armed. In the state of Texas, because it's constitutional carry, yeah, absolutely. Most people do carry some kind of a weapon everywhere they go for personal protection. They're not going to go out there and carry it to just shoot it off in the air like, oh yeah, yeehaw. No, that's not how it goes. You protect your family with it. His defense attorney has argued that there's no evidence that he carried a loaded firearm. And so I mean, that right there is that there's no evidence of him actually carrying a loaded firearm to the Capitol building is kind of disturbing that they're actually trying to charge him with it. But according to court records, December 28th, Guy messaged an unnamed individual. I don't think unarmed will be the case this time. I'll be in full battle rattle. That's what the law. If that's a law I break, so be it. But I won't do it alone. So, I mean, again, this is all, from ProPublica actually saying what they're actually saying. That can always be misconstrued and, put it in their own words to make it sound, worse than it really was. We don't know that this is all true. When he left to drive for Washington, he told his family, "If everything works out, I'll see you again." And what Nicole said was a typical melodramatic goodbye. I love you all. I love all of you with all of my heart and soul. He texted the morning of January 6th. This is our country, and for all of you and your kids. So I mean, he felt that he was, in these types of words or whatever, he felt that he was trying to protect this world from actually falling into this communistic state that we're actually kind of headed towards. It's really just disturbing, to say the least, and where the government's actually taken us. Um, Jackson came home to find his mother and sister transfixed by the television as protesters pushed past police lines. Um, what the? He recalled asking, "Is Dad there?" The screen showed police in the Senate chambers, guns drawn. "Your father is there," the mother responded. Finally acting as Jackson's earlier tip, the FBI agent called him to set up a meeting. 2 days later, Guy came home, eager to boast. His son decided to record him. Jackson met with the FBI agent the following week. In the pre-dawn hours of January 16th, a squad of more than a dozen officers rolled up to the Reffitt home, armed in SWAT raid. According to the family and footage from their neighbor's security camera, a mobile battering ram idled in front of the house as the officers tossed flashbang grenades. The family clambered out, some still in their underwear. Guy went without resistance, assuring the kids that the federal agents were only doing their job. He was expecting to be arrested by then, his family said, and even laughed when the officer who accompanied him to the bathroom after he had been handcuffed. As he was being carted off in the back of the police vehicle, he yelled out to the window, "I didn't ask for this." He's been behind bars since. On April 22nd, Reffitt messaged his wife a note of encouragement. You are superstars for more than a half for you are superstars to more than half of the country. There's no going back now. And I mean, really, when it comes down to it, yeah, there is no going back. There's nothing that he can go back to. That's going to actually be, the same as it was when he, got arrested or whatever. And we all witness to that. We all realize that, things have changed, dramatically to the point where we don't, nothing is the same as it had been, even without going and sitting. All that being said, I'm going to wrap up for today. Thank you very much for listening. As you can see, if you want to support me immediately, you can go to www.buymeacoffee.com/coolfrog. For the listeners, that's KOOLFROGG. You can see down below, on this screen, that there's YouTube links, Twitch links, Odysseys, locals. Locals is just another opinion.locals.com. You can follow me on Twitter at CoolFrog. You can follow me on Getter at the Pickerel. If you'd like to support me in any other way, you can also hit up my Linktree/CoolFrog, spelt the same way. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.